Syracuse and Clemson. It's a matchup that always delivers. Last year left the Cuse with a sour taste in its mouth, and that certainly left the Orange hungry.
We like playing them, and we know that they're the best, and it gives you an opportunity to go against the best.
Today, SU has a chance at revenge. The Cuse has lost each of the last 5 games against Clemson, and SU's undefeated record in 2023 is on the line. The stakes are high for this ACC contest, and Cuse Countdown has you covered. 1 hour, pre-game coverage, Syracuse and Clemson. Let's go. Cuse Countdown live just outside the Dome, just outside Gate N before Syracuse football. 4-0 SU takes on Clemson inside the Dome. With Austin Barach and Ethan Frank, I'm Ben Spector, getting you set 1 hour, 10:30 to 11:30 before a noon kick between the Orange and the Tigers. Before we talk about this afternoon's matchup, though, we have to talk about last year's matchup. A big second-half penalty by Elijah Fuentes-Cundiff really set the tone for the rest of the game, and Austin kind of set the tone for the rest of the season.
Absolutely, Ben. We remember this Syracuse team, Ethan, 6-0, 14th in the country, but it all spiraled in the second half of the game. That penalty led to a Clemson 2 straight touchdowns led by true freshman Cade Klubnik. This guy, he wasn't elite, but he got the job done. Will Shipley on the ground and Phil Maffa were elite. The Clemson offensive line dominated in the second half, and they got the job done.
Yeah, you look macro at what this matchup has become, Austin, and it's one of the biggest games on the calendar for Syracuse every single year. But the Orange are just 1-9 against Clemson since Syracuse joined the ACC in 2013. You look at the last 3 games, though, in Syracuse, all 2 of them decided by 1 score. A 27-24 win in 2017 for Syracuse, then a 41-6 loss in 2019, and then just 2 years ago, a 17-14 Clemson win in the Dome that put a really sour taste in people's mouths. The Orange are coming for revenge today after 2 years in a row of close losses.
And Ethan, it almost seems like Syracuse plays Clemson close every year. So many moral victories out of this game. At some point, they have to translate to actual victories.
Syracuse and Clemson. Clemson seems to own SU's number recently. The last time SU won was 2017. But Nick Luttrell, he's inside the Dome. He's Citrus TV's reporter for the day. He's in front of the student section with Otto's Army. Nick, what do you have for us?
Yeah, Ben, we're pumped up here in the student section. Guys, you guys ready to go? The players are here behind me getting warmed up. The student section has been here for hours. We're here with the Orange Menace. That's all you want to go by. You guys have been here since last night. You camped out for the first time ever for a football game here at Syracuse University. What was that experience like for you?
It was great. It's definitely a different feeling than the basketball campouts when it's 20 degrees. It was a different feeling, and it was very exciting. We were all super hyped to be out here that late at night and just camping out. It's been a great time. So, yeah.
What are you most looking forward to? It's a very exciting game between Syracuse and Clemson. What are you looking forward to the most for this game?
Beating the Tigers. We're gonna send them packing with their tails between their legs. We're definitely coming away with a win today with the student section making the noise we're about to make tonight. So.
All right, and then Mr. Orange Menace, you guys created a little bit of a shot sheet here for student section members to get hyped up, to know some information about the Clemson Tigers. Tell me a little bit about this.
So we wanted to do something a little different than our normal small cheer sheets that I mentioned, like our normal traditions and stuff. So we decided to take some cheap shots at Clemson like other student sections like to do, and just kind of make fun of them a little bit with like their quarterback when he got his water bottle stuck in his helmet, so we poked fun at that. Just a bunch of little things like that that's going to get the student section that much more riled up.
All right, Mr. Orange Menace, the best time of all. Do you have a score prediction for us?
I do indeed, and I'm going 30-27 with Cuse on top.
All right, a close game. Syracuse gets a win. You guys want to leave us with a chant or something? You want to do something?
Let's go Orange! Let's go Orange!
All right, Ben, we'll send it back to you.
Orange!
Nick, thank you so much. We'll have coverage inside the Dome all show and all game long between SU and Clemson. Austin Barach and Ethan Frank. I'm Ben Spector, just outside the Dome, just outside Gate N before SU and Clemson kick off at noon. And guys, we have to set the season scene here, right? Syracuse 4-0 for the second consecutive season, the first time he has accomplished that feat since the 1959 and 1960 seasons. Meanwhile, Clemson 2-2. It's completely out of the ordinary. So Austin, two teams in sort of different spots, you would say.
Yeah, it's really unusual, Ben. It's usually the reverse, you would think, right? Clemson is the powerhouse team. Syracuse 4-0, Ethan, but it's not like they faced the stiffest competition. The win at Purdue was great, but Purdue is a Big Ten team. Not all Big Ten teams are created equal. The comeback against Army was nice. On the Clemson side, though, I'm very fascinated by this. They were ranked 9th in the preseason poll. That's their worst mark since 2015. Yes, they've lost to Duke and Florida State, but it wasn't like they were supposed to be elite anyways. They don't have any elite wide receivers like we've seen out of T. Higgins and DeAndre Hopkins and Mike Williams in the years past. So right now, this is a really good spot for Syracuse to get a big-time win.
Yeah, you mentioned that loss to Duke that Clemson had. That was a Tigers team that turned the ball over 5 times in 3 different ways in that game, whether it be an interception, a fumble, turning the ball over on downs, and especially not converting in the red zone. That's where Syracuse's defense is going to have to be really, really good today, is in the red zone. A defense that's giving up an average of less than 11 points per game so far this season. Average margin of victory for the Orange, over 30 points per game. And I know you mentioned it, not the stiffest competition so far, but Dino Babers and his coordinators have these players working right now at a level that may be something we haven't seen in a very long time here in Syracuse, and it's an exciting time to be an Orange fan.
Syracuse and Clemson, SU 4-0, Clemson 2-2. The key here, though, SU 0-0 conference play. It's the first ACC matchup of the season. Clemson 0-2, though, fell to Duke in the opener, and Syracuse, Ethan, seems to have a rough time against the Tigers in the recent past, just 2-9 all time.
Yeah, 2-9 all time, 1-9 in the ACC, as I mentioned earlier, and this hasn't beat Clemson since 2017. You think about the losses in 2018, and then in 2021, and then in 2022, all by 1 score, and winnable games for Syracuse, 2 on the road and 1 at home. This is a Syracuse team that's going to need to get it done in a lot of different ways today. Clemson only allowed 22 rushing yards to Florida State last week. Syracuse's bread and butter is on the ground with Garrett Schrader and LaQuint Allen. The Orange, there's a lot at stake for them today. I think Syracuse can become a top 5 team in the ACC for the rest of this season where they win today, because Clemson is definitely the more talented team. It's just if they can handle this road environment in what is likely to be the biggest crowd of the year for the Orange.
Absolutely. This is no doubt about it, the biggest game of the year in this building. Clemson has so many more 4- and 5-star recruits than Syracuse, but you know what, Ethan? Clemson is on the ropes. This is a prime spot. They haven't had a 3rd loss this early in the season in Dabo Swinney's tenure. In the last 11 years, Clemson has only had 3 3-loss seasons. Those 3 losses, the 3rd loss came on December 30th, November 15th, and October 23rd. This is a spot that they are unfamiliar in. Yes, they lost last week, so you might say, oh, backs against the wall, time to rebound. I don't know. This team has been trending in the wrong direction. It's a great spot for Syracuse and quarterback Garrett Schrader to potentially win a big game.
Ethan, with probably, we're minutes into this pregame show with the hottest take of the day thus far, that Syracuse, with a victory, could be a top 5 team in the ACC for the remainder of the season. Syracuse and Clemson coming up at noon, but Arch Adele went around, asked some fans, is Syracuse and Clemson a big football rivalry? Why don't you tell us?
If you want to call it a rivalry, I have no issue with that, but in terms of like an official rivalry, probably not.
We're rivals with them, but they're not really rivals with us.
I think so.
Why?
Battle of the Oranges.
Throughout the history of Syracuse football, there have been a huge set of rivalries. Like here, throughout the 70s, 80s, way back in the day, Syracuse versus Penn State. If you want something a little bit more recent, how about the early 2010s with Syracuse and West Virginia? A Geno Smith on West Virginia, which was ranked 15th, got crushed by Syracuse in the Dome. If you want something even a little bit more modern, you've got Syracuse versus Clemson. But that is the question. Is this really a rivalry?
Absolutely, unequivocally, no way. If you asked 80,000 fans coming out of a game at Death Valley, who's your rival, okay? Not one of them is going to say Syracuse. Not one.
That is Brent Axe. He writes for Syracuse.com and has been here his whole life. He says Clemson has South Carolina as a rival. SU, by contrast, doesn't really have anyone.
So this is kind of the issue with Syracuse football. Like, this is the root and the heart of college sports, rivalry, and they don't have one.
ACC presidents have voted on to accept Pittsburgh and Syracuse into their conference.
A departure like that certainly doesn't go unnoticed.
Very disappointed. Always been a big fan of the Big East. I don't see why they want to move there to the ACC.
You said stunning. It was more like a blindside.
This could be the genesis. SU left the Big East back in 2013 for the ACC, leaving nearly 35 years of history behind. The revenue increased, but is that what fans prefer?
Name me a fan that says, yeah, man, we got $50 million in TV money. Let's go. No, what does a college football fan say? We beat you, and we have bragging rights for the next 364 days.
Axe says it's a microcosm of a larger issue, one that's in the public eye again with the latest reshuffling of conferences.
Now college football feels like the NFL. These conferences no longer represent regions, they represent brands.
So, can we compromise? Come somewhere in the middle on what to call this?
A mini rivalry, I guess, like a rivalry 2.0. I don't know. We'll have to keep throwing stuff against the wall and see what sticks here.
I guess we'll all keep trying to put a name on whatever this is. Chile Dele, Citrus TV.
Chillicase, thank you so much. We're here outside the Dome before Syracuse and Clemson get things going in just over an hour. We're going to a quick break here on Cuse Countdown. On the other side, we'll talk about Syracuse in 2023. 4-0 for the first time since 1959 and 1960 in consecutive seasons. How'd the Orange get there? We'll tell you after this short break. Welcome back to live Cuse Countdown outside the Dome before Syracuse and Clemson get things going in week 5 of the college football season with Austin Barach and Ethan Frank. I'm Ben Spector. We're just outside the Dome, but roaming the quad, we got our reporter Jesse Cook, who's with some Syracuse cheerleaders right now, just over an hour before the game. Jesse, what do you have?
There is a sea of orange out on the quad, but right next to me I've got 3 people wearing a ton of orange, Syracuse cheerleaders. You guys excited?
We're super excited. Today's a big game, so if we can get everyone to cheer with us, we think we can secure a win.
Let's hear the pom-pom. Hear a lot of that in the Dome, a lot of that out here. Syracuse cheerleaders on the quad. I'm going to send it back to you guys outside the Dome. It's a lot of fun out here.
Syracuse and Clemson, Jesse, thank you so much. But last week, Syracuse had itself an affair. With Austin Barach and Ethan Frank just outside the Dome, I'm Ben Spector before Syracuse and Clemson get things going. Our pregame show before week 5 of the college football season. Guys, last week in week 4, it was really a tale of two halves between SU and Army. Austin, what happened in the first 30 minutes versus the second 30 minutes to get SU that victory?
You're right, Ben. It was a completely different two halves. Army ran the ball down Syracuse's throat, and Syracuse stacked the box to begin with. It didn't matter, though. The Black Knights had 2 separate scoring drives of 9+ minutes in the first half. Unbelievable stuff. In the second half, Dino Babers mentioned there was one adjustment. I grinded the tape this week to find what that one adjustment was, Ethan, and I think identified Justin Barron as the rover, came down as basically a 4th or 5th linebacker, essentially. They also, changed stuff up with the A-gap sometimes. But on the offensive side, too, it was a gut check for this offensive line. Like, Quint Allen had many more running lanes in the second half. He got things going in a big way. I mean, at some point, you just have to look at yourself and say, do we want to be undefeated? And at the halftime break, Syracuse said yes.
Yeah, you mentioned time of possession there in the first half. Army had the ball for over 23 minutes of game clock. But then in the second half, you mentioned that flip. Syracuse started controlling the tempo, and after getting stuffed on 4th down on its opening drive of the second half, Syracuse went on to score on 5 straight possessions after that for 26 consecutive points. For Syracuse to be a malleable football team and change the way it plays based on the opponent, that is the sign of a quality football team. And no, Army is not the most high caliber of opponent, but it was still a strong test for a Syracuse team that needs all the tests it can get going into a game like today.
Guys, after the game against Army, Dino Babers said that at halftime, the defense made just one adjustment. Never specified on what that adjustment was, but that adjustment helped propel Syracuse to outscore Army 26-6 in the final 30 minutes. SU then went on to improve to 4-0. And a big reason why is that defense. Rocky Long leads that group. It's the first year he's been the defensive coordinator for the Orange. Ethan, he runs a similar system, the 3-3-5 that Tony White ran last year, but this SU defense, the number 7 scoring defense in the country.
It's so impressive what Rocky Long is doing. And the worry for me coming in is, Rocky Long's an older guy.
Right.
How is he going to be able to connect with college players at his age? He is doing such a good job of getting this defense to buy into what he is preaching. It's so impressive what he's doing. How about the red zone defense for Syracuse? Opponents have been in the red zone 9 times against Syracuse this season and have only scored on 4 of those possessions. Someone I want to talk about who Syracuse lost, not only did it lose Tony White, it also lost Nick Monroe, who was an assistant coach, coached the secondary, recruited a lot of these talented players on the defense. He's not talked about at all as someone who's missing. This defense has not skipped a beat, and it's because of Rocky Long. He's done such an impressive job.
Here's a term that I like to use with this defense with Rocky Long: organized chaos. Okay, you got guys flying all over the place. Linebackers blitzing with Marlowe Wax. I was about to say Mike Hal Jones, but Marlowe Wax has done so well, it's almost like
He basically is Mike Hal Jones. He basically is.
He swapped places. Derek McDonald's been blitzing Stephon Thompson, Leon Lowry. These guys are big and physical. And 6 interceptions on the year as well. That's tied with Wake Forest for the most in the ACC. And 6 different players on this defense have recorded interceptions. Just goes to show how versatile this defense is. Rocky Long is putting his players in big-time situations.
You mentioned blitzing. That's something I want to hit on as well, because he's doing such a good job of sending pressure from so many different angles, whether it's Thompson, whether it's Leon Lowry, whether it's McDonald, or it's Wax coming on a linebacker blitz. Doesn't usually send anyone from the secondary, but you'll get the occasional safety blitz with Justin Barron coming down from the rover position. Mixing up pressure is going to be key to keeping Cade Klubnik off balance.
Absolutely,
today.
because Klubnik, when he struggles, it's against blitzes. It's when he has to improvise. It's when he has to be an off-platform quarterback. I think Rocky Long can scheme up some really good things against the young QB.
The defense lost a lot of key pieces in the offseason. Mike Hal Jones, Garrett Williams, the list goes on, and Nick Monroe was the defensive coordinator for the Pinstripe Bowl. When SU played Minnesota, he's no longer with the staff. Rocky Long comes in, and the defense has really propelled. But from the defensive side to the offensive side of the ball, Syracuse is one of 2 teams in the entire FBS to have a top 10 scoring defense and a top 10 scoring offense, the other being Oklahoma. A big reason why for the offensive side of the ball, though, Jason Beck, the new offensive coordinator, was the the quarterbacks coach last year, came from Virginia, took over as the quarterbacks coach, then moved on to the offensive coordinator role. Austin, he's made Garrett Shrader into a real dual-threat quarterback because Dabo Sweeney, leading into this game, said that Garrett Shrader has the running ability like a tailback, and he's really shown that in 2023.
Absolutely, Ben, you're right. Garrett Shrader, one of his best attributes, as we know, Ethan, is his legs. Last season, Shrader averaged just 3 yards per carry for the season. This year, that number is just below 7. I know smaller sample size, but it's still really good. And it goes beyond Shrader, though. You think about guys like Rondé Gadsden and Isaiah Jones, deep threat guys, just reliable receivers. They aren't in the picture right now. They aren't. So it's Damian Alford, it's Umari Hatcher, and it's Donovan Brown. And Alford stepped in a big way, and I think that Beck's done a great job with the spacing of those 3 receivers. Alford at the X on one side, and then Hatcher and Brown on the other side doing crossing routes, doing, fade routes. What he's done with these limited weapons has been really good. We didn't even know who Umari Hatcher was last year, or even Donovan Brown for that matter, and these guys are integral, and it's because of Jason Beck.
Yeah, he's putting them in positions to succeed, and that goes back to his play calling. You think about what Robert and I did against Clemson last year. Garrett Shrader dropped back to pass a lot and did not hand the ball off to Sean Tucker, which was a huge talking point after that game. So far this season, Jason Beck is calling a lot more run plays, and that goes to the game script and who Syracuse is playing. But he is doing a good job of getting the ball in his best players' hands. And the 2 best players on Syracuse's offense that are healthy right now are Garrett Shrader and LaQuint Allen. And he has to do a good job today of getting the ball in Syracuse's best players' hands. And that is Allen and that is Shrader, whether it's in the design run game, whether it's in the short passing game and getting Allen out in space to catch the football. He caught 6 passes against Purdue. Need to see more out of him doing that today. I could not be more impressed with how Jason Beck has put his skill position players in positions to succeed.
In the second half against Clemson last year, Sean Tucker, star running back for SU, was not involved at all, as you mentioned, Ethan. Sean McDonough on the ABC broadcast said, Tucker, out of the witness protection program, Allen needs to be integral both as a runner and as a receiver.
One more thing for Jason Beck, he needs to tell Garrett Shrader, do not take any hits on your body. Clemson has the 2nd ranked run defense in the ACC and the 4th ranked pass defense. That means they're going to be coming after Garrett Shrader, a really impressive defensive line. He has to protect his body.
You talked about LaQuint Allen, a key weapon for SU in 2023. Last year and the year before, it was Sean Tucker. Well, he's moved on to the NFL, undrafted rookie. He's with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the league. LaQuint Allen, though, last week against Army, had over 100 yards on the ground. Not a career high, that came against Wagner a year ago, but LaQuint Allen has been a big key piece for SU, and Dino Babers talks about it all the time. It's a big reason why he wears a single-digit number in number 1. But Ethan, what makes LaQuint Allen so special, especially with guys like Rondé Gadsden and Isaiah Jones out with injury?
Well, he's versatile, and he has a really good skill set for what the Syracuse offense presents. He's shifty, he's quick to make decisions, but he can be patient if he needs to as well. He's a really complete football player, working on his pass protection, working on getting involved in the receiving game as well. LaQuint Allen is a player who, even with relative inexperience, after his performance in the Pinstripe Bowl, it was clear this guy is ready to take the next step. The one thing is, how many explosive plays can he create? He's had a run of 20-plus yards in 3 out of 4 games this season, but Clemson's defensive front, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be the toughest front 4 that he's played all season long. And for LaQuint Allen, you think of everything that this guy went through in the offseason, how nice must it be for him to just go out and play football based on everything he's went through in terms of off-the-field issues, family issues, and everything that's gone on. It must be a huge reprieve to just go out and do what he loves doing.
I can't help but root so much for him today and for the whole season. But you're right, Ethan. It's not just that he's a physical runner. He also has that patience. He hits the holes in a good way. And he's improved in the receiving game, as you mentioned. The 6 receptions against Purdue. He'll have to be a big factor in that one as well. But overall, he's put up some numbers this season. We all thought, Sean Tucker going to the NFL, like Ben mentioned, with the Bucs. What's it going to be with Allen? Is he really that good to step into that role? He pretty much is, Ethan. He's top 5 in the ACC among running backs in carries, rushing yards, and rushing touchdowns with 6 through just 4 games. He's really, really productive.
Allen showed glimpses of his talent when Syracuse played Minnesota in the Pinstripe Bowl. Tucker didn't suit up for that game. Allen took over as the starting running back. So Allen's a key weapon for SU's offense this season. Another key weapon that we haven't really touched on a lot, that's Damian Alford. Had a career day, 9 catches, 135 yards. Love that fist bump from you. You're very adamant, very energetic about the Canadian junior receiver, Damian Alford. So Ethan, what makes him really, really good for SU in 2023? Why has he stepped up so much when his number's been called on?
He's a matchup nightmare, Ben. It's simple as that. Damian Alford has done a really good job becoming a mismatch against small cornerbacks. You think last week against Army had a lot of small cornerbacks. It was 6'6" Damian Alford going up against a 5'9" quarterback. In one-on-one man-to-man coverage, that is going to be a win for number 5 all day long. Someone I like to compare Damian Alford to. When he's going up for a contested catch, he reminds me of Mike Williams of the Los Angeles Chargers. You know where Mike Williams went to college?
Clemson?
He went to Clemson. You think of the national championship game against Alabama, dominating in a game that Clemson ended up winning to get its first national title of the Dabo Swinney era. He turns 50-50 balls into 80-20 balls for the offense. But the onus is going to be on Garrett Schrader to identify man coverage, and if Alford has a mismatch against a good Clemson secondary, he has to take advantage of it and push the ball down the field.
Absolutely. I think some of it has to do with Alford switching from 82 to 5.
What kind of difference does that make?
He looks faster, more athletic, look good, feel good, do good, Ethan. You know, that's what I always say.
You look good.
Thank you. You too. But Alford, he makes those sideline catches look routine. You're right. He's big, athletic, but the part that he's added to this game this season specifically, and really against Army, is over the middle of the field. He's no longer afraid to take hits over the seam from a safety or a linebacker, and that's the improvement. 9 receptions for 135 yards for him last week. Before last week, that was not in his range of outcomes. He now has the upside to be a number 1 receiver.
But the problem with that is there's going to be more attention from the defense focused on him. So he has to be ready for double teams because Army started bracketing him in the 4th quarter last week. So is he ready for those double teams? There was a good story on Syracuse.com this week about how he might play more in the slot, like where Rondé Gadsden played last year. That's where Syracuse wants its top targets to play over the middle of the field and not make Garrett Schrader have to throw cross-field passes.
And Garrett Schrader, he doesn't have the strongest arm, so sometimes Alford has to bail him out on those jump balls. And then to your point about Clemson potentially bracketing him, that's where Jason Beck comes in and freeing up some of the other options.
Because of Alford's size, he can make those leaping catches and bail Schrader out, like Austin talked about. Towards the end of the game against Army, he climbed the back of Bo Nicholas-Paul, made that leaping reception, which sealed the win for SU. Alford, Allen are weapons for the Orange. Another key weapon is the speedster Donovan Brown. And for more on his story, we go to Adam Avon.
Donovan Brown grew up in Montgomery County, Maryland, right near Washington, D.C. In 2020, Brown transferred to Quince Orchard High School, a football powerhouse, with the hopes of getting recruited to play college football. COVID took away his junior season, but when senior year rolled around, he was ready.
So Quince Orchard is a program that I've covered intimately for years now. The first time that I went to go see QO during the preseason, I said, man. Then I met this tall, lanky kid by the name of Donovan Brown. And Coach Kelly tells me, yeah, this kid can play. He's a track star. He's got real speed.
Brown was a multi-sport athlete in high school where he competed in track and field. He set school records and won the Maryland 4A state championship in the 400-meter dash and 200-meter dash. Quince Orchard head football coach John Kelly knew that Donovan's speed could be a lethal weapon that would translate perfectly to the football field.
When you're long like Donovan is, you can run as well as he does, athletic as he is, tracks the ball really well, does all that great stuff. On top of being just super competitive. He doesn't like to lose. All those tools kind of play in.
And when he gets in the open field, it looks like he's gliding, yet he's running away from everyone else. And that's one of those things that separates like a moderate athlete from a big-time athlete.
Chad Ricardo and Coach Kelly both told me Syracuse fans should feel lucky that COVID canceled Brown's junior season, because if he would have had 2 full years at Quince Orchard, he would have gotten at least 25 Power 5 offers. Now with Rondé Gadsden out for the remainder of the season and Isaiah Jones missing some time, maybe it's Donovan Brown's turn to show us what he's made of. Adam Avon, Citrus TV.
Adam, thank you so much. Donovan Brown, a key weapon for SU. Syracuse and Clemson almost getting underway. Fans starting to file into the dome at Gate N right behind us. We're going to another break here on Cuse Countdown. On the other side, we'll be talking about the scary Clemson Tigers led by Dabo Swinney and quarterback Cade Klubnik. Stay with us.
Dad, for a minute, okay?
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Welcome to my house. Everybody's pretty tired of each other. The walls were closing in. Clearly a case of too much family, too close, 24/7. If this sounds like your house, try going someplace new. YourLifeYourVoice.org. You'll find lots of ideas to help you handle the family stresses of being confined to close quarters. YourLifeYourVoice.org. It could help you find a little more.
Welcome back to Cuse Countdown, live before Syracuse football hosts Clemson. With Austin Barach and Ethan Frank, I'm Ben Spector. Fans starting to make their way to the Dome to watch Syracuse and Clemson go head-to-head. But before that, we got to talk about the two coaches in this matchup. Dino Babers and perennial college football coach, always in the conversation, Clemson's head coach, Dabo Swinney. The two seem to have a great relationship, but Austin, Dino's team is 4-0. Dabo's team is 2-2, a bit of a change of scenery for
Yeah, it's really weird, but these two guys, at the end of the day, they have a lot of mutual respect for each other, you know, and to me, they're sometimes corny, but they're always very quotable, and that's what I like about them. Dabo Swinney, you know, one thing about him, he doesn't like the transfer portal, but he likes to recruit 56 4 or 5-star players. Dino,
he's pretty good at it, too.
He is. He dabbles in the recruiting game, he dabbles in the transfers, but I think at the end of the day, it's all about the respect between these guys.
Yeah, you look at the two of them, so much respect. They remind me of a little bit of a bromance from afar. You know, I'm going to list you some of my favorite bromances. Sure. Ben, I know you'll like this.
Oh, here we go.
How about a little Joey and Chandler?
Ooh,
yeah, kind of
I love Friends.
Tom and Greg, or that's one. How about if you look athlete-wise, Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal? Those are three of my favorite bromances. Dino and Dabo remind me of that. That's the kind of respect these two coaches have for one another. But for Dabo, in the modern age of college football, he hasn't really, adapted to the transfer portal and adapted to NIL, and that's kind of why Clemson has started to fall behind, especially a team like Florida State that beat the Tigers last week.
You know, you talked about Tom and Greg. You can't have a Tomlet without having some Greg. So that's a good bromance that you alluded to there, Ethan. But Clemson, Dabo Swinney, that defense has always been something special, especially that defensive line. Alums like Dexter Lawrence, Christian Wilkins, Cleveland Farrell have gone through the program, and this year it's certainly no different. Ethan, Tyler Davis, preseason All-ACC, he mans the front for Clemson.
Yeah, two players on the defensive line drafted in the first round last year in Miles Murphy and Brian Bresee. And it doesn't matter because you have Tyler Davis and you have Xavier Thomas.
Churn them out.
Yeah, it's just year after year after year. Clemson has these big bodies on the defensive line. You look at the sacks by the Tigers against Syracuse over the one-score games. Last season, the Tigers took down Garrett Trader 5 times, the majority of those coming in the second half, and that doesn't even count holding penalties against the Orange. Nearly 4 per game is the average of Syracuse and Clemson in these one-score matchups, and in the game Syracuse lost, they were getting sacked over 4 times per contest. So this defensive line is a massive challenge for an inexperienced and untested Syracuse offensive line today.
That's a fantastic point, Ethan, because the story of the second half, do you think Klubnik? No, it was the Syracuse offensive line could not contain the Clemson defensive line at all. The entire offense was out of sync. Think about this. Before the Duke game in week 1, Clemson had recorded at least 1 sack in 45 straight games. Unbelievable stuff. You talk about Xavier Thomas as well. He's been in the program so long. He sacked Eric Dungy back in 2018 to seal the deal for Clemson. Clemson just always have dudes on the defensive line.
It's a bit of a throwback Saturday, not Thursday, a bit of a throwback Saturday, but Tyler Davis mans the front in Charlotte over the summer, and he said that his favorite memory from last year's game was seeing his teammates get some sacks. So he's a big team player, Tyler Davis is. But from the Clemson defense, we're going to the Clemson offense. We have to talk about the quarterback, Cade Klubnik. He started his career thrown in the middle of the fire against Syracuse last year in Death Valley. Austin, he's had his ups and downs, had that water bottle stuck in the face last week against Florida State.
I can talk about Klubnik for 10 minutes straight if I wanted to, but I won't.
All right, I'll just exit stage left.
Yes. You know, super high prospect out of Westlake High, where Drew Brees went to high school, 7,500 yards, 3-time state champ, Gatorade Player of the Year, yada, yada, yada. But he enters in the Syracuse game. That was his first real test. He did well, and then he entered in the UNC game after Uyunglele had 2 bad drives. He played well in that game, but was horrible against Tennessee in the Orange Bowl. He carried that over to Duke in week 1, and he was much better last week, 7 days ago, against Florida State, big-time matchup. But he also had 3 plays that were not good. Strip sack fumble. He still lacks some awareness sometimes. And as we mentioned earlier, Ethan, he's not great when he faces pressure.
Yeah, last season, 3 interceptions on only 100 pass attempts. That is not how many interceptions you want to be throwing on that few pass attempts. The numbers don't really tell the full story. He's completing 66% of his passes, averaging almost 250 passing yards per game, and has only thrown 2 interceptions through 4 games so far in 2023. But for Klubnik, it's just about the poise and showing an ability to lead this team, even as just a true sophomore. That is the test today against a defense, like we mentioned earlier, that is led by Rocky Long, that is going to send pressure at him.
The big thing with Klubnik, inconsistency. Good one week, bad the next one.
And Klubnik had some big shoes to fill. You know, you think of Clemson's quarterbacks in the recent past, Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson, national championship for Clemson, with Watson leading the charge and Hunter Renfrow as his slot receiver. So a lot of expectations for Klubnik when he stepped foot onto campus as the Clemson starting quarterback. He has a good partner in the backfield, though. That's Will Shipley, preseason All-ACC member. Phil Maffa also fills in there. So, Ethan, some good tailbacks for SU to keep track of.
Yeah, they might be one of the best tandems or duos in the country. It doesn't really matter how far you look. And the thing is, you know, you may think that they complement each other really well. They're kind of a yin, but they're really similar backs.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, that's what makes them unique to stop, is that when you have a good backfield duo, it's usually, one's the pass catching back and one's in on passing downs and the other is kind of the bruiser. But these two guys are both so good in all aspects of the game. And one weakness, if you're looking at the Syracuse defense, Phil Maffa in pass protection has not been very good. Allowed a key sack to Florida State last week. If Syracuse can send pressure when Maffa is blocking in the backfield, that could be a huge bonus for the Orange defense. Shipley's the guy to keep an eye on, though. Over 170 rushing yards last year, had the game-winning 50-yard touchdown in the 4th quarter. Yeah. He is trouble.
Yeah, you mentioned a great tandem. They're not exactly thunder and lightning like they're accustomed to. They're thunder and thunder. They're both really good. They're both bruisers. They're also sneaky athletic. They can hurdle guys at times. Phil Maffa, 6.7 yards per carry this season.
Yeah, both average over 5. They're gaining a first down every 2 plays based on their yards rushed.
And they're also roommates, so they have a lot of chemistry with each other.
One member of those thundery pairs, if that's really a term that we're talking about here, Will Shipley. He does a lot of great things on the field, but he's also making a name for himself literally off the field. Our Skylar Wilkes has more on Will Shipley's big NIL opportunity.
Ben, like you just talked about, Will Shipley is a pretty good football player. Last season, the junior became the only player in ACC history to earn first-team all-conference honors at 3 different positions: running back, all-purpose, and specialist. The North Carolina native was also a finalist for the Paul Hornung Award, which is given annually to the nation's most versatile player. All of those accolades are great, but for Shipley, nothing compares to Chipotle. The running back's passion for the food chain first came to light 2 years ago. In response to a tweet from Chipotle about name, image, and likeness, Shipley responded with this. Well, fast forward to just over a week ago, and Clemson's lead rusher struck an NIL deal with his favorite place. By the way, it's not the easiest thing to do. The restaurant's chief brand officer says that they only work with the biggest Chipotle fans and called Shipley a one-of-a-kind student athlete. The star back joined some elite company, including Ohio State's Travion Henderson and UConn's AZ Fudd. This collaboration goes beyond the typical NIL agreement, though. Instead of just being paid to post on social media, Shipley is truly taking advantage of the name part of name, image, and likeness. The store sign in downtown Clemson read Chipotle. Plus, they gave out t-shirts with that slogan to the first 1,000 customers. To John Chansey from Rubbing the Rock, the move was perfectly executed.
It was, not just clever, but it was also funny. And at this point in time, things haven't gone all that well for Clemson overall. So I think anything like that to lighten the mood was very welcome at the time.
Tiger fans would also welcome another breakout performance from Will Shipley, who amassed over 100 total yards and 2 scores last week.
The real question is, guys, how many white rice bowls can lead Clemson to victory?
Skylar, thanks so much. Chipotle, whatever it is, I want some of that. But first, let's go to the quad as Syracuse and Clemson are about to get things going. We got Jesse Cook with more from the quad.
I'm out here with someone very special. You may recognize him. Do you like Syracuse? I guess so. This is Otto the Orange, and Otto. It's a quad. Syracuse wins. An emphatic yes from Otto. Syracuse is going to win. And admittedly, in our meeting with Otto, we said we can't talk. Yes, Otto, I call you downtown. Can I get a special group of it? How does that even happen? Otto's one to turn her head around. This is Jesse Cook with Otto the Orange, the most famous man in all of college sports, sending it back to you guys outside the dome.
Jesse, thank you so much. Otto's excited for Syracuse and Clemson. So are the fans behind us going into the Dome as SU and the Tigers are going to get set at noon for an ACC clash. That's one conference battle happening in the country, and there's more conference battles happening. We'll talk about it on the other side of Cuse Countdown. The ACC is in full action. We'll tell you about the full slate after this short break.
They took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Did you know dragging chains can spark a wildfire?
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Welcome back to Cuse Countdown Live, just outside the Dome before Syracuse and Clemson get things going at noon with Austin Barach and Ethan Frank. I'm Ben Spector. Syracuse, Clemson, not a ranked matchup inside the Dome. It is a conference matchup, though. Both teams searching for their first conference win of 2023. But the ACC has been very good in the top 25. Austin, Syracuse has even received some AP votes.
Absolutely, Ben. They have 8 votes this week in the AP top 25. We talk about teams like Florida State, number 5, North Carolina awaiting Syracuse. They're on a bye week right now. Duke is playing Notre Dame this week. But to me, the most interesting part of the ACC conversation in regards to the college football playoff is Florida State. I think that because of the depth of conferences like the Pac-12 and the Big Ten, Florida State has to go undefeated to make a college football playoff.
Wow,
Yeah.
how about that? What about a team like Miami, one of Florida State's biggest rivals? There's 4 ACC teams ranked. You look at the ACC compared to other conferences, the SEC has 7 teams in the top 25. You mentioned that Duke and Notre Dame game. That'll be played tonight, one of the best games of the week in college football. When you look at the top 25, to me, it's parity. Like you mentioned, only one ACC, but only one SEC team in the top 10 as well. That's number 1, Georgia. But Florida State, I like that take, that the Seminoles are going to have to do a lot of big things in the ACC this season to be able to get back to the college football playoff for the first time in a very, very long time and compete on the national stage. Another fact to mention, this is the first time Syracuse and Clemson have played where the Orange have received more votes in the AP poll than the Tigers. I believe it was like 8-4. So it was a pretty small margin, but still a point margin.
There's sort of two teams that are playing opposite roles. We've talked about it a lot during this show. That certainly still holds true. So the ACC is well represented in the top 25. That's a holistic view of the Atlantic Coast Conference. But this week, there's a lot of key matchups. Ethan, you're looking at Notre Dame, Duke. I know Notre Dame is not in the conference, but Duke has really stepped up this year.
Yeah, Duke has been really impressive. And how about their quarterback in Riley Leonard, who might be putting himself in the first-round pick conversation with how he's played this year. I know you have your Caleb Williams and your Drake Mays and whoever you want to throw out in that conversation. Riley Leonard could definitely be a first-round pick, a really talented player at Duke under Mike Elko, who's done a tremendous job building that program, getting the Blue Devils to be the number 17 team in the country, beating Clemson in week 1. That is a really impressive feat, but Notre Dame is a whole different beast. Hung tough with Ohio State last week in what was a very entertaining, albeit a slow and groggy football game. I am keen to see if Duke can get to 5-0 and get the job done tonight.
Yeah, Duke is interesting. They beat Clemson, as I mentioned. Clemson 56 4 or 5-star recruits. Duke just 2. So you mentioned Mike Elko. He's done a fantastic job there in Durham. But you're right, Ethan. I think Notre Dame rolls into Durham and crushes the Blue Devils. It's cool that Duke football is relevant, but I think that ends slightly today.
Duke has really been good in 2023. Beat Clemson in week 1. That was a big statement win, 28-7 for the Blue Devils. But on the national scale and some good betting advice, we go back to our studio with Braden Reed. Braden?
Guys, thanks so much. Welcome back inside our CitrusTV studios. Braden Reed here, ready to give you my picks and what is a great college football slate this weekend. You're looking at it saying, I got to find a way to make money off of this. I really want to. I'm your guy. Let's get started with Syracuse and Clemson. We'll start with the spread in this one. The Tigers getting 6 and the hook going on the road. That's a lot of points. I think it's too much. I won't mess around here. I'm taking the Orange to cover. Dabo's boys just 1-3 against the spread this year. Cade Klubnik's first game here in the Dome. I think he's going to have a tough day. Even if Clemson wants to lean on their all-ACC back, Will Shipley, Syracuse DC Rocky Long shown he's willing to stuff the box and force QBs to throw it. I think this will be a slow one. These teams have played each other close in recent years. Take the Cuse to cover the 6.5. Look at the total now, sitting at 53.5 with some juice to the under, and I know, I'm sorry, I hate this as much as you do, but I'm taking the under in this one. I can hear it through the screen. Braden, both of these teams have gone over this number in 3 of their last 4 games this season. True. You wouldn't be wrong. The last 2 times these teams have played, they've combined for just 31 and 48 points. I'm rolling with the under here. One more pick for the game going on here in the Salt City. We saw Syracuse get out to a slow start against Army last week, kind of feeling them out a little bit. I think we see something similar this week. A lot of ground game early on, a quick first 30 minutes. I'm taking the first half under 26.5. Look, if you want to see points, this game is not for you. Go watch USC and Colorado. More on them in a second, but for Syracuse and Clemson, I've got the Orange plus 6.5, under 53.5 on the game, and under 26.5 in the first half. Now, come along with me. We'll zoom out to the rest of the slate now, and let's look at Notre Dame at Duke first. The Irish giving just 5.5 points in this one, coming off the home loss to Ohio State. I like them to get back on track and cover in this one. We'll go to Corn Country next, where Michigan takes on Nebraska. The total in this one just 39.5. I honestly think Michigan comes close to covering this on their own, but mix in a few Huskers points, and this should be an easy over. Wrap things up in Boulder, Colorado coming off a shellacking at the hands of Oregon, now welcoming USC. What a 2-game stretch. The Buffs getting 21.5 in this one. I know, we just saw what happened at Autzen. Still no Travis Hunter, but that is a ton of points. USC's defense still suspect, as we've grown to expect. I think Colorado keeps it at least reasonable. Parlay those 3, you've got yourself 10 doubloons to win 59.60. Sprinkle a little on that one, won't hurt anybody. That'll do it for me in here. Enjoy the games today, and please gamble responsibly. Ben, Ethan, Austin, back out to you guys.
Braden, thanks so much. And to all our friends at Beat the Bookie. In front of the Dome with Austin Barach and Ethan Frank, I'm Ben Spector before SU and Clemson get things going. Braden trying to be a rock star with those picks, those betting picks. Austin, how about that parlay? Michigan, Nebraska, over 39.5?
Yeah, I don't know if I like that so much, guys. I think that this is a rock fight in Nebraska, in Lincoln. So, I think Michigan gets off to a slow start like they normally do, but then piles it on. I can see Nebraska scoring 3, maybe 7 points. I like the under in that one.
The one I'm hesitant on is I'm not so sure about Colorado against USC. I could see Caleb Williams absolutely lighting up the Buffaloes, and I know it's at home and there's a huge guest list, including one of my favorite athletes in LeBron James. But there are going to be a lot of celebrities at that game. But I could see Caleb Williams putting on an absolute show. But in terms of the Syracuse picks, I like that he's going with the orange to cover in this game. We've seen how close these matchups are. 4 of the last 5 matchups have been within 6 points, and the spread being at 6.5. That would make a lot of sense to take Syracuse to cover. And then the under as well. This is a matchup that doesn't really go over as well. So I like where Braden's head is at with that. The first half under is really interesting to me because I could totally see a world in which one of these two teams comes out absolutely scorching. Could I see 17-10 at halftime and then the second half is really tense? Yes, I absolutely could. So I'm a little iffy on that first half under, but I like the game, the spread and the game total going under.
I like the under for both the first half and the total. These defenses really know the opposing offense very well. I think it'll be tough to score points.
Well, Bo Nix certainly lit up Colorado last year. We'll see how the Buffaloes respond against another conference opponent, a top 10 team in the country in USC. One final break for live Cuse Countdown before SU and Clemson get things going. We'll be back here outside in front of the Dome as fans file in for this big ACC clash between the Orange and the Tigers. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Syracuse and Clemson coming up soon. We're right outside the quad for our pregame coverage right in front of the Dome for a Cuse Countdown live before kickoff at noon. With Austin Barach and Ethan Frank, I'm Ben Spector. Guys, fans filing inside the Dome gate end. It's almost that time.
I'm so excited, guys. There is a tangible sense of electricity right here.
I can almost feel Austin's heart beating out of its chest with how close I'm sitting to him right now. The energy is unmatched. Fans on both sides in all orange, because what else would you expect from these two teams? It's awesome to be out here.
Ethan, I don't think you got the memo. We're both wearing orange ties, Austin and I.
Well, maybe it's a sign of things to come.
Maybe it is a sign of things to come. Before we go out to the Dome for Clemson and Syracuse, we got to go out to the quad with our quad reporter, Jesse Cook, who has more ahead of the matchup.
You guys are all concerned out there about the Syracuse-Clemson game. I'm concerned to see if I can make this shot. I haven't played cornhole in like a month. Well, maybe Syracuse can do a little better in the passing game than I just did, but special thanks to Chris and Jack. You guys think Syracuse is going to win? Let's go, Orange! Got some big Syracuse fans out here on the quad at the cornhole field, all of them moving over to the football field. That's all I've got for live Cuse Countdown. I'm Jesse Cook, sending it back to you guys near the Dome. Thank you so much.
Jesse, thank you so much. Jesse was out on the quad for the entirety of Cuse Countdown before Syracuse and Clemson got things going. Now we're going to the Dome with Nick Luttrell. Nick, you look handsome as always, seriously. But what's going on inside the Dome before SU and Clemson get things going?
Yeah, Ben, well, we're back inside the JMA Wireless Dome. Seats are beginning to fill up behind me. This is a dome that should fit close to 50,000 fans. It's slowly but surely getting there. This is the game that the athletics department has marketed all week long for fans to show up to Syracuse and Clemson. And frankly, if I'm being honest, they shouldn't have to market that hard. It's Syracuse-Clemson. This is the game that's been a historic matchup between these two teams over going on a decade now. So hopefully fans will get here soon enough. Just about over 30 minutes left to kick off inside the JMA Dome. So that's what's going on with the fans. But we've talked about it all show long. But Garrett Schrader, he has to be at his best tonight. I got the chance to talk with ACC Network analyst Eric McLean, and he told me that Schrader is playing his best football right now, and that's super important for the Orange. Obviously, to get this win, Schrader has to have an impact one way or the other, whether it's rushing the football, whether it's passing the ball. Schrader has to have an impact in this game for Syracuse, the undefeated Orange, 4-0, to get the upset over Clemson at 2-2. Ben, we'll send it back to you outside of the Dome.
Nick, thank you so much. We'll have coverage of Syracuse and Clemson all game long, all over social media, X, Instagram, Threads. I mean, we're on Threads. That's some serious stuff. Live outside the Dome before Syracuse and Clemson with Austin Barach. I'm Ethan. He's Ethan Frank. I'm Ben Spector.
I'm Ethan
You're Ethan Frank. You're Ethan Frank. SU and Clemson. We're inside the Dome. Fans getting excited for a big ACC tilt. Both teams searching for their first conference win of 2023. It's Syracuse's first conference matchup, Clemson's third. So before that, Ethan, who do you got in this matchup? All the marbles, Syracuse and Clemson. What do you have?
I've been pondering this for a while, man. I spent all week thinking. The question I've been asking, is Syracuse ready to win a game like this? I don't know. The answer I've been thinking about, is Clemson's defensive line going to be too much for Syracuse to handle? Will Garrett Schrader put on a Herculean performance like he did against Purdue on the ground? Can Damian Alford step up and be that number one receiver? But the question that I keep going back to, is Syracuse ready? I don't need anything to tell me different. I don't think they're ready. I got the Tigers to take down the Orange 23-20 in this game. I just don't see it, Austin. I don't think Dino Babers is ready to be this talented of a Clemson team.
Way to go, Corso. I mean, unbelievable stuff out of you, Ethan. I'm a little bit different. I approach this from a different standpoint. I'm a little romantic about sports and storylines. Clemson has not lost back-to-back games in the same season since 2011. All right?
That's a long time ago.
It's been a long time. It feels almost due. The decline has already started for this team. Declines will lead to snowballs. This team has already begun that decline. Again, they already have 2 losses. A third loss hasn't happened this early in over 11 years for Dabo Swinney's squad. Hope is not a strategy,
no, it is
as
not.
we know.
It is not.
But guess what? This Syracuse team does not need hope. All right, you look at Syracuse historically, Clemson historically. Right now, this is a good Syracuse team and a bad Clemson team. Give me the Orange, 21-20. Garrett Schrader will beat the Tigers in his third crack at Dabo Swinney's defense.
You guys think this is going to be a close matchup. You guys dropped the papers, dropped all the notes, put everything aside and said, let's settle this on the turf. Ethan, you picked Clemson. Austin,
I got
you
the Tigers.
picked the Orange. Austin, let's talk a little bit more about that Orange pick. Garrett Schrader, leading up to this game, talked about how it's a different type of game. It's a different opportunity. When Clemson's on the calendar, it's a whole different atmosphere. There's something in the air between Syracuse and Clemson when they play in the Dome. What do you expect from Garrett Schrader today?
Garrett Schrader, I expect him to fight with everything that he's got, guys. Historically, Clemson puts a spy on him. They limit his ground ability. But you know what? He's a gamer. He won't be afraid of taking hits, Ethan. He'll put his body on the line. He's like a super senior.
Yeah,
I
don't doubt that, Austin. I just think so. This guy right here, Travis Etienne. Let me speak. He set the standard for Clemson running backs. Will Shipley is going to follow in Travis Etienne's footsteps today, and he is going to run all over Kevon Darton and the Syracuse defense. The Orange on the second play of the game against Western Michigan let up a 75-yard touchdown to Western Michigan.
And then what happened after that?
Well, Will Shipley is a lot better than the running backs at Western Michigan. I think Clemson's running game is going to be a huge factor in why the Tigers are able to win this game.
Ethan, every dynasty eventually comes to an end. Today is that day. It'll be a historic day in Central New York, and I'm disappointed that you'll be on the wrong side of history.
Well, the last time there was a historic day in Central New York between Syracuse and Clemson, you got to go all the way back to 2017. The fans behind us, there's a lot of them here, they want a 2017 type of day. A lot of orange, hard to tell whether or not they're Syracuse fans or Clemson fans. It's an orange out inside the dome. A lot of different fans walking in, rooting for different teams. But Austin, you think it's going to be a 2017 type of day. What does a win for Syracuse mean in the whole thing? I know Ethan said top five in the conference. What do you think?
It just means that you've arrived, right? We think this team in the last 5 years always average, but never great. Never really got that marquee victory. This team is good enough. I really do believe that. They have enough playmakers. This defense with Rocky Long, Marlowe Wax will crush Cade Klubnik with blitzes. I don't think that Klubnik is ready to handle the type of atmosphere, the juice, the orange out, the weekend here, the alumni weekend. It's a huge day, and this defense is going to get to Cade Klubnik.
I just don't see how the Clemson running game does not dominate. I don't see how Clemson doesn't dominate in the trenches on both sides of the football. We talked about the defensive line earlier. I think Garrett Schrader is going to be running for his life all afternoon, and that is not a recipe for Syracuse success.
Schrader, I think, will be running for his life. I got the Tigers. I know everybody's been wondering what my prediction's going to be. I'm not trying to hold it back, make a whole movie scene. I got the Tigers taking this one over the Orange, 20-17. I think it's going to be a close game, like you guys mentioned, but the experience of Clemson, I think, takes this. That's all we got for Cuse Countdown live outside the Quad. Syracuse and Clemson getting set inside the Dome. Enjoy the game.